back into a file system directory, and the same postfix process is going to pick that up and it's going to send it out to your Exchange server. So the nice thing with this is we have one process we mess with. Now you could actually set up 2 instances, okay, but then you'd have to manage 2 config files. The other thing with postfix, highly configurable, real easy. SendMail, SendMail's highly configurable and it's very rich, but the problem is those darn macro files. It's confusing, probably one of the most confusing products I've ever worked with, but it's highly configurable. Postfix, real simple. Little text file, tell it postfix, reload, bam, you're up and running. Clam Antivirus. I just got a call on this yesterday. Somebody was looking for an OpenVMS antivirus utility. ClamAV actually has a port for it. Very rich product, been out there a number of years. Its main focus is actually email and virus scanning. However, it's also used as a client system or an end client system. And can automatically update by default. I think it's set to every hour. They only release virus updates, actually, definition files, every day. Mailscanner itself can actually support ClamAV, I think natively, and it can actually support 20 other AV clients, both corporate and open source. And you can actually run your mail not only through ClamAV, but through all 20. So depending on what richness of the rules that you want, maybe something isn't getting caught by ClamAV, you can throw it into Symantec, you can throw it into Sophos, okay? Those are just a couple of the big names. Spam Assassin. This is the heart of what I'm seeing a lot of corporate email gateways out there, okay? They're selling you a product, or you're going to your ISP, and they're using Spam Assassin. This is an open source project by the Apache group, and it's very mature. It's actually in its 3rd major revision. Has over 750 heuristic checks. I'll show you that here in a little bit. Can use DNSBLs, or DNS black hole lists. Bayesian filtering, which is kind of unique, because, you know, Viagra and enlargement might not be terms. Whoop. Okay. Check. We're back. Viagra and enlargement, I guess the mic system didn't like. Viagra and enlargement might not be terms that you want into your corporate facility because, let's say you're a law office, but let's say you're a pharmaceutical company, and Viagra is the main product that you deal with, and enlargement of tumors is something that you see every day, okay? These are terms that you can custom tailor the Bayesian filtering database to actually give you a point system or give you a scoring on the email or the content of the email, either way. Now, the problem with it is people are Bayesian poisoning now. And they're sending you, blurbs of text, like my grandmother made me cookies, right? And it's actually spam. So they're actually poisoning this. The good thing is that the way the scoring works inside a Mailscanner, it doesn't just take one score and say, hey, this is spam. You actually set a high watermark, like a 5 or a 6. And depending on whether or not you hit the DNSBL, you might score a 3. Depending on whether or not you hit the Bayesian, you might score a 1. And it's that collective score that'll actually be called spam, okay? And then you can even set a high watermark that's stuff that really is spam. The true Xanax and Viagra and drug ads, you can just drop that. So you actually have a couple different options with Mailscanner. Spam Assassin can also use something called digital checksum clearinghouses. And these are Razor, Pizer, DCC, okay? These all focus on taking a cryptographic algorithm or a checksum of a piece of mail and comparing it to what's perceived as spam in a public database. So the problem here is that database is public and it's free. And it's actually a good thing because you can use it, but it's a bad thing because the spammers have access to that as well. So they're going and they're doing the same thing. They're called hash busting. They're going out, they're checking to see if, whoops, I think I'm going to have to hang this up. They're going out, they're checking the databases, seeing what checksums match spam, and they're poisoning those databases. So it's kind of two camps out there on the internet. Some that rely on DCC and say it's a good thing, and then some say, nah, it's a waste, it's going away. And I'm kind of tossed up. This one's actually scored pretty low in that scoring system I was telling you about. However, Razor actually looks at mutating emails and the signatures, and it's a little more advanced than the other two projects. So I set up all three when I build a box. There's SAR. SAR is the Spam Assassin Rules Emporium. And this is stuff that Spam Assassin doesn't catch, okay? Tactics that people have taken to get around Spam Assassin, the DCCs. People actually go out, figure out their own corpus or the way they're going to catch the email, and write a rule. So what you find in these rules is actually well-known phone numbers to like pharmaceutical companies or mortgage companies, well-known email addresses that are tagged with spam, phrases, URLs, and other tactics like the pockmarks, Viagra spelt with a 1 instead of an I. So that's what these rules are all about, and they're pretty darn effective. SAR rules are actually updated through a set of scripts called rules du jour, so you can custom tailor what you're looking for, and there's different rules out there for different things. So there's financial rules, there's phone number rules, there's actually a blacklist rule, which is now a DNSBL. SAR is actually updated pretty frequent. It's not daily, it's weekly or monthly, sometimes every 6 months, but it's another tool. And then DNSBLs, I keep talking about this. And DNSBLs are about the best thing since sliced bread. That's a Bohack catchphrase. DNSBLs are actually DNS databases of offending IPs. Now, the reason why they're so sweet is because I had no method about 4 or 5 years ago of catching IPs that were dynamic. Okay, so cable modems, DSL networks. These guys should not be sending you email directly. They should be sending it to their ISP's server, and their ISP on a static IP should be sending it to your corporate mail server. So the person that's running a spam campaign from a DSL line should be shut down. Well, the only people that track dynamic IP pools are DNSBLs. And you can actually go out there. Serbles is one. Maps is another. There's a couple pay for. Some are paid for. Most are free. A lot are donationware. There's a lot out there. And you can actually tie Mail Scanner, Spam Assassin, or your Postfix MTA in on this. So the way it actually works is you just type lookup, and you'll reverse the IP. 24.7.7.124 used to be my cable modem IP when I was on Comcast. I don't know who it is now. We'd reverse that to 124.7.7.24.multi.serble.org. And if you receive an answer, it's spam. Now that answer will be like 127.00 and a number. That number, usually Serbles will give you a lookup table, and depending on what number it is, it's what group or category that IP is listed in. That IP is listed in, worms and Trojans, okay? This IP has been seen as sending out a lot of spam, and it's possibly a worm or a Trojan or an exploit. It's dynamic or dull. A dial-up list, which they're usually not dial-up lists, but that's what they used to be called. A dynamic IP list. Okay. The last product is MRTG, and again, open source, totally free. I find that most admins put up, a virus scanning gateway, DNS unit, put in a router, and they never do the next step. They never get any reporting on it. So when they run into trouble, they're like, what's going on? And actually, to tell you the truth, that's what shies a lot of administrators away from Linux, because there's no GUI, right? I don't know how many of you are Windows or Linux administrators. How many of you have a background in Linux and Unix? Okay, sweet. I feel like I'm in company now. All right. Most administrators that operate Windows networks, they're shy of this. That's why they say, hey, you guys, Linux, no, we'll go out and buy a product, okay? Because there's no reporting. They can't give something to the executive officer and say, hey, look at our spam trend. Look at it over the last year. Well, MRTG actually gives you that functionality. They've adapted it from Mail Scanner, and it's a beautiful thing because I can actually get the mail relayed daily, spam identified in that mail, the virus is caught, how many processes are running of the MTA, the copies of Mail Scanner, and they'll fluctuate. Files in the incoming queue, the outgoing queue. This will show you work stoppage or shortages. Okay, so this is really nice, and I can actually zoom down so we can actually see trends with this. This is just an overview of what's happening today. we can actually zoom down and look at one of them, and we can look at it daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly. So I can actually print this report out for an executive and actually show them. And I say, hey, look at the little picture. We're under attack, okay? This is why you're seeing a lot of spam. So this is often something that I find Linux administrators just go, hey, you know what? I'm at the controls, no problem. I know what's going on. But you need some kind of form of looking at what's going on at a glance. So you could see, hey, this is the reason why it's taken 5 minutes for somebody to send an email inbound. It's because the incoming queue is stuffed up. Hey, let's go take a look at what's wrong. Maybe restart the process, get the system back up on its feet. So you can do that from a console prompt, but if you're away, enjoying something, right, your junior admin, go in, look at these. So problems with gateways. This is a major problem. Another thing that's overlooked. It's the marriage of Unix and Windows. But Windows is pretty nice because the email server, the Microsoft Exchange server, runs on a Windows platform, a Windows domain. That's mostly what corporate America runs. LDAP queries. Let's LDAP in. Let's LDAP query it. So all we have to do is get an LDAP client on the mail scanner, create some scripts, usually in Perl, and tell Postfix on the mail scanner to use a recipient map. And what that does, it takes all of the email addresses off this corporate mail exchange server, and it dumps them onto this mail scanner gateway. And now you're telling MTA, don't bring in email if the person doesn't exist. Otherwise, you're processing email whether you like it or not. And what I've seen over the last 2 years, actually probably 3 years, is something called HBAs. And these are harvest block attacks. They're denial of service attacks if you want to think of it as a denial of service attack. But what they're actually doing is the spammers are out there, and they're going through a set of random strings, and they're seeing if those accounts exist on your mail server, like Joe123 at foo.com. Sorry to use foo, but it's the only one I know of. Joe123 at foo.com, right? If your email server takes it in, then that address is valid. Well, problem is, if you don't set up anything like this, your gateway is going to bring all that mail in no matter what. And you're going to process hundreds of thousands of emails, and you don't need to. You put that list on the mail scanner gateway, and now you're rejecting Joe123. And they'll actually go through. It'll be like usually a word list that they'll go through, and they'll find accounts. So where can we get more information? Well, mailscanner.info is actually the project that I spoke about here today. I've actually got a demo, and I was hoping to have enough time to actually show you the demo. Mailscanner.info is the home of this product. And again, Julian Field of Southampton University. It's also home of the Big Yellow Book. They sell a yellow book that talks about all of the configuration. Everything's well documented. The wiki for mailscanner.info, which is a great installation wiki. A great, perfect setup for Debian Etch. Etch just was released April 8th, and I love it. It's actually solved a lot of problems. Sarge was out before. I'm a minimalist kind of person. I like to install just what you need, and I found that Sarge installed a whole bunch of junk in the internet daemon that you didn't want, so you always had to pull it out. This Etch I found to be beautiful. Easy setup, but there's actually a great how-to for the perfect Debian setup, and I usually follow it up to the point of quota, and I'll show you that here in a minute. And then, of course, my website, which is bohack.com, but I got to admit, I'm not free, okay? I don't solicit business, but if you run into something and you need consulting, I do charge. So, and then, of course, my sponsor, which is PTI, and it's just product placement. They're the people that brought me here today. So let's test drive the system. Now, one of the things I do as an instructor is I actually run multiple computers at once, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with the buzz term of virtualization or virtual PC, but I love virtual PC. I like VMware too, but virtual PC is free, and it's by Microsoft. It works with all their Microsoft products, and it works with Debian too. What I have running here is Domo, okay, and Domo is the domain controller and exchange unit. And These are all local on the machine. They all have an RFC 1911